Jason, Clear Creek Farm. Today we're going to show you how to properly trim a goat hoof. Today I'm going to show you how to properly trim a goat hoof using a pair of hoof trimmers. This is going to be a three-part series that I'm going to do. This one here is going to be using a hoof trimmers. The next one is going to be using the Hoof Boss. And the third one, because people's asked me why don't I use an angle grinder to trim hoofs, I'm going to use an angle grinder and show you how I used to trim my hoofs. And then I'm going to come back on that third video. I'm going to tell you why I like or dislike each of the three different types of trimming. This doe here has not had her hoofs trimmed in probably 3 or 4 months. Probably back when we weaned them from their moms. She is coming on to a yearling now. The first thing you want to do is evaluate the goat's hoof. With her, you can see that her toe is starting to grow out here. And then she has some overgrowth here where she has some dirt. So you want to scrape all that dirt out first to see what you're working with. Make sure you don't have no split walls or any hoof rot in here. See here, you want this angle here to basically come across here pretty flat. So I'm going to want to take almost all that off because you want from here to the toe and here from the heel to be flat. So let's go in here and get started. I like to take off that longer stuff first, just so that way I know where I got all that taken off. So, you don't, when you're using the trimmers, you don't want to take off too much because you're not for sure exactly how much you have down here, because you don't want to go too far because then they'll start bleeding and stuff like that. On these younger does, it shouldn't take much to get them flattened out. See, now that I look back at this again, it's getting pretty close. But you want to watch this here, on here, this will start getting pink and soft. So you don't want, once it starts getting soft, where you push on it and it's pretty soft, you don't want to go any farther than that. Now we'll do the same thing to the other side, because you kind of compare this side to that side to see what you want to do. You don't want to take off any of this heel here until you find out where you need it to come off. I like taking all that off the inside. Then we'll take and smooth it down. If you set this side by side here, you can see this is getting pretty well flat. You probably can take a little bit more off this toe area. And then see back here on the heel, you just want to nip off that top to keep that flat. Just because there's a little bit of indentation here, don't bother none, because that will fill in over time. But you want to make sure that you don't go too deep. You want to make sure that it stays pretty smooth, and it's starting to get soft. So that's where you want to leave it. So I do have my almost the same from here to here and here to here. And you want to make sure that this is flat. Using a pair of snippers, you're not going to get perfectly flat. You're just going to try to get the best as you can. It will wear down over time and it'll start growing back. Now you can see her sitting down on this front foot here. It's standing flat on there. She's not rolling back onto her heel or too much onto her toe. So that actually looks really good on her. Now let's go around to the other side and do the other side. This other side is about the same. It's a little harder to film and do it, but you're doing the same thing here. You want to evaluate her hoof, trim out all, or clean out all that dirt. See how much growth there is. Making sure you don't have any problem spots. And then you're going to want to trim down this overgrown sidewall. And I know usually I can trim down that back there when I do the overside over here, so that way it's flat. We'll do this other side as well. If you got a question on your heel, if you should take any off, leave it on there at first. I know that I'm going to have to take some of that off there anyways to smooth it out. And then we'll take and start looking at this from here to here. And actually this hoof is not as grown out as the other side, but I know I'm going to need to take off some more of this toe. And you're going to want to, when you hold it up here, you can look at it to make sure that it's flat. You don't want to get too aggressive with this because then you'll get in there where you're going to cut their pad too much. I can start seeing pink here, so I know that that side's getting down there pretty good. And the inside, usually you don't have to take off as much as the outside, but that's all flattened down. She's pretty clean there. It's getting soft. So, and I look at the sides here. It's pretty even from there to there. Now we'll set her down, see how she stands. She looks pretty good now that she's standing there. She looks square across the front. She's not leaning front in or out, front or back. So that front set of hoofs are trimmed up good. Now let's move around to the back side. You know, pick her foot up, and you're going to see at the same thing about the growth, where she's at. You see that her toe's starting to grow out there pretty good. So all this is going to have to come off. We're going to still look at the sidewall to see how much we need to take off. Once again, we'll take off that extra long stuff first. And see, this big old dip here is actually all overgrown. See how this is up here, mounted up a little bit here? You're not going to want to take that off at first. You're going to want to take this toe off as much as possible until you get and knock down there. And you start seeing that pink in there, that's when you're going to want to start stopping. Oops, see, I got a little too far on there, but I can still take this outside wall off. Now she's going to bleed a little bit. Sometimes, especially if you've waited a while to trim them up, you might end up having to do a couple different sessions on trimming them. And these back feet I found actually are a little bit harder to work with than the front ones because the wick is pretty close to the end of the hoof. So you take off just a little too much, they'll start bleeding just a little bit. That ain't too bad, so she'll be all right. But let's do the other one. Once again here, I'm going to clean out that dirt. We're going to look at them, see where we need to be on our sidewall. We know that it needs quite a little bit. Took off this inside here. Hold them down, make sure they're flat. Knows that by looking at that, looks like she needs a little bit more. Took off this toe on this side. And this toe on that side. The worst thing here with the scissor kind of trimmers, the actual hoof trimmers, is taking off just a little bit at a time. It's the worst thing about it. But see, I'm starting to see pink there. Got some pink there. So that hoof is good for now. We'll set her down. If we can get her to stand how she's supposed to here. So we got her set down now, and you can see that she's standing pretty square, not back on her pasterns none. Standing pretty flat on both of them hoofs, front and the back. So she should be good. So the hoof trimmers that I'm using today are ARS trimmers. You can get them from Premier1. I will leave a link down in the description for them. Like I said, this is the first in a 3-part series I'm going to do over the next week or so. The biggest thing you got to make sure you do when you're trimming hoofs is make sure that you got a flat surface. You don't want to take off too much hoof, too much heel. You want to make sure that your animal is standing flat when you go and set them down. If they need some more took off the front, you take some more off the front. You're going to find out that you're going to take more toe off than heel. You want to get it down as close as possible without cutting them. If you do nick them here or there, you're not going to hurt them none. It will hurt them for a couple days. They might even limp. You don't want to do that, but sometimes there's not much you can do about it. If you got any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I will get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you got some good information out of this video.